Batman Arkham Asylum was the first in the series of Batman Arkham games, quite obviously, but also, more importantly than that, it was one of the first Batman games that gave players a complete feeling of freedom to step into the cowl and the boots of the Dark Knight himself and actually experience what it felt to be the Batman. Because of that, this game did do some things differently than the rest of the series, and also just like Arkham Asylum kicked off its own series, this video is kicking off a 4-part series over the course of the next near future while, where I'm going to be taking a look at the different things that each Arkham game did that no other Arkham game did either at all or the way that it did. So, let's take a look at 5 things that Batman Arkham Asylum did differently from the rest of the series. The first thing I want to talk about is the Confined atmosphere. It confined Batman to this claustrophobic atmosphere of Arkham Island. You were stuck on the island with all of these other inmates and isolated against all odds. It was just one man talking to a few of his allies over, the intercom or his headset, taking on an army of villains. This was essentially an army from Blackgate that supported the Joker, along with other rogues that had escaped during the Joker's Asylum riot or Asylum party during the Arkham Asylum incident. And it made you feel trapped. This is the one game that I would say makes you feel trapped and makes it seem like you can't escape. You can't just avoid the enemies. You can't actually backtrack and get out of danger. You are stuck here with the Joker. You are stuck here with Poison Ivy, with everybody here, Mr. Freeze, even though you don't actually see him. All of these people are here, and you're alone against them. I think that's really interesting, and it's something that none of the other games did quite as well, because even when you're by yourself in the other games, it doesn't ever feel completely as isolated and alone as it did in Batman Arkham Asylum. The next thing I want to take a look at was the Riddler. I personally believe the Riddler is done the best in this game. I think he's most done like the Riddler. And the big part of that is that the Riddler's challenges were mostly, wait for it, or at least a big part of them were, riddles. It doesn't feel this much like that's the case in the other games. In the other games, there are riddles in each game and in each section of each game, for the most part, other than Origins. But these riddles, while they matter, it doesn't feel like the same ratio. And it might actually be, but there's also the fact that the Arkham Island is small enough that it feels like there are riddles around most corners, little Easter eggs and references to the overall Batman world, whether that's to concepts from Batman the Animated Series, or things that would go on to become canon in the Batman Arkham franchise later on, being able to find Catwoman's goggles in the Arkham Manor, being able to find Mr. Freeze's cell, even though he doesn't show up physically in the game, and seeing that he's actually still inside that cell captured, being able to find the Scarface puppet, the Prometheus wanted posters. These were all very interesting little tidbits that the other games did do, but they didn't seem to do to the same ratio, or at least it didn't feel like it to me and many other players. Whenever I ask anyone, hey, where do you think the Riddler was done best? Which game do you like the Riddler most in? I've never heard anybody say anything other than Arkham Asylum. And that doesn't mean that the majority rules. I just think that this does resonate very well with people, that you are able to go around and find these riddles that actually are puzzles and mind challenges that test your knowledge of Batman, that make you wonder, okay, well, what is this? That actually show you something that makes you look it up later and say, oh, well, what was, maybe you're new to the series, what was Scarface? And you look at the character bio, or you look it up online. You are always learning something new in this game, and I think that that's a big testament to the Riddler. It should be a character that teaches you something new, that makes you think, and makes you think about the universe that you are in. Also in this game, Batman is not an action hero. There are action elements to this game in terms of the combat style with the combos, but you are not an action hero to the same extent that you are in many of the later games, especially in Batman Arkham Knight. It is very easy to die in Predator situations in this game. You can't just grapnel boost away and get away from the problem. You can't summon in the indestructible bat tank to solve your issue for you if you're in the middle of a street brawl. No, because you are stuck on the island, and this does play back into that isolation atmosphere and claustrophobia, you are stuck in each situation you get in. Oftentimes, the doors are locked once you get into a Predator encounter. You either solve that Predator encounter by thinking like Batman, by thinking about how would I take out each and every one of these enemies in a non-lethal way, or you die. It's as simple as that. So I think that this was a really interesting idea that was lost in later aspects of the series, just sort of panned away from this. They started going more into Batman the martial artist, Batman the combat master, Batman the tank boy or the soldier, and less Batman the detective or Batman the strategist. I think that this game was very good at tapping into the strategy side of the Dark Knight himself and actually making you have to think like Batman in order to tackle new situations and get out of trouble without just running away and regrouping. I think that's incredible. It's one of my favorite things about this game, and it's something I can't wait to see in the future. I really hope we see this again to this extent in some way or another. This game also, in my opinion, had the best use of the atmosphere in the entire series. I believe that both the color palette and the music tied into this. I think that the color palette is better in the original, but it is still very unique in Return to Arkham Asylum. There's a lot here, a lot of greens, darker hues, weird lighting that make you feel like it's pulled out of a comic book or ripped out of the page of a comic. And while it doesn't really look like the serious house on a serious Earth, it does have that distinctly unique comic book style to it, mixed with the early seasons of Batman the Animated Series in terms of its visuals, its color palette, its shadows, and everything that makes the game pretty. These are all very unique, atmospheric conditions that I believe this game did better than any of the other ones. I also believe that the music plays a huge role in this too. Even things like Joker talking and you hear the PA system go off as bum, ba-dum, bum, you always know that something is going to be announced, that there is going to be some kind of encounter, usually a one-sided encounter coming from the Joker towards Batman, and it establishes an atmosphere of not fear for Batman, but of foreboding, of dread. The closest that any other game did to this was in Arkham Knight during the times where Scarecrow actually directly addresses Batman and the PA system in Gotham squeals. It's the closest we ever got to this again, but this was a feature that it resonates with players. A lot of people, when you ask them, what do you remember about this game? That's one of the things, is the Joker's character presentation, how he speaks to Batman throughout the game, and how you interact with him in a one-sided relationship. It's very interesting, and it kick-started the entire series, both as a game, but also in terms of that relationship and how it would be going forward with this dynamic setup through the unique atmosphere of Batman Arkham Asylum. The final thing that this game did that I don't believe any other game did nearly as well, or even tried to do actually, so this might not be a fair critique to them, but let's just say this game did it the best, was this feels like Batman the Animated Series all grown up. Or more grown up, should I say, because that series already has a ton of mature themes and adult concepts, but this game benefited immensely from Paul Dini's involvement in it. It very clearly feels like it was a spin-off or a branch off of the timeline of the DC animated universe and the Batman the Animated Series universe. Personally, I haven't read anything about this in terms of if it was meant to launch its own continuity or not, but it's always seemed to me like Batman Arkham Asylum was never meant to launch a full independent continuity and was meant to be more of a adult branch off of that DC animated universe. They use the same voices for the most part. They obviously use a lot of the same looking character designs in different ways. This is a very interesting game that is inspired a lot by that universe, and I think that it makes you feel as if you are stepping into that universe with no censorship, no hiding of the adult themes, and just full-on madness. It also gave those who grew up with Batman the Animated Series, which was a lot of us from the 90s, whether we were watching Batman the Animated Series, Justice League in the early 2000s, or even Batman Beyond, it gave a lot of us a chance to fully live out our fantasy of being the Batman, of actually stepping into Batman's shoes, and carrying out his mission for ourselves. These were sort of the culminations of the ideas of the DC animated universe Batman in an interactive way, in ways that things like Batman Vengeance or The Rise of Sun Tzu could never do and were never able to accomplish. Batman Arkham Asylum was able to do that and was able to start a franchise that would go on and be amazing in different ways throughout each iteration. So let me know what you're thinking in the comments down below. Are there other things that you believe that Batman Arkham Asylum did that the other games didn't do that I didn't mention? What are those? I'm interested to hear your thoughts. And do you have ideas on what the other games did differently that maybe this game or others didn't do in the franchise? Let me know what you're thinking. Be sure to check out the links in the description below. There's a link to the Patreon where you can help support the channel. Every month, my patrons make this channel possible, and I can't thank them enough. There's also links to the Discord where you can join a community of fellow gamers who live in a society and stay shui all the time. We're basically the real life Jokers gang from Batman Beyond. We hang out, we talk about everything down there, and also the Twitter, Instagram, and Reddit. And I'll see you in the next one. Have a fantastic day and stay shui, everybody. I'll see you in the next one.